The Chthon Arena was a marvel of galactic engineering, a massive structure that floated above the emerald plains of Centauri Prime. It gleamed like a polished jewel under the dual suns of the system. The arena's exterior resembled an ancient colosseum, reimagined through the lens of advanced technology. Crystalline walls that shifted colors with the angle of light. Gravity-defying architecture that seemed to defy structural logic, and energy fields that hummed with barely contained power. Today, the arena pulsed with anticipation as hundreds of thousands of spectators from across the Galactic Alliance filled its stands. Species of all kinds, some bipedal, others with multiple limbs, some gaseous entities contained in specialized suits, gathered for the multi-species championship that had become the most prestigious competition in known space. Dallas Green stood in the preparation chamber, adjusting the final components of his modified exosuit. As an Earth engineer with no formal combat training, he was an anomaly in this tournament. Most competitors were either professional fighters or members of warrior castes from their respective planets. Dallas was neither. His presence was the result of a diplomatic gesture. Each member world of the Alliance was permitted one representative, and Earth had chosen him through a series of elimination trials that tested ingenuity more than raw strength. 10 minutes until your match. Terran, announced an automated voice that reverberated through the chamber. Dallas nodded, though there was no visible entity to acknowledge his response. He ran a diagnostic on his exosuit, one final time. It wasn't much compared to the biological advantages of his alien competitors, just a lightweight frame that enhanced his natural movements and provided minimal protection. Its true value lay in the modifications he'd made himself. Hidden compartments for tools, reinforced joints that could lock when needed, and a heads-up display that analyzed everything in his field of vision. The human is still preparing? How quaint. The voice came from behind him, melodic yet cutting. Dallas turned to face Vanilla Dravtor, the reigning champion from Veltar. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her lithe frame belying incredible strength. Her skin was a deep indigo that seemed to shimmer with an inner luminescence. And her eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle on her face, were solid silver without pupil or iris. The most striking feature, however, was the retractable blade that extended from each of her forearms. Natural weapons evolved over millennia of Veltarian evolution. Just making sure everything works, Dallas replied, keeping his voice neutral. Wouldn't want to disappoint the audience with an equipment failure. Vanilla's mouth, a narrow slit that widened when she spoke, curved into what passed for a smile among her kind. Your species is so dependent on your toys. It's remarkable you've survived this long in the galaxy. Dallas had heard variations of this sentiment since arriving at the tournament. Humans were newcomers to the Galactic Alliance, having been admitted only 30 years ago. To species that measured their civilizations in millennia, Earth was barely more than a curious child at the adults' table. We manage, he said simply. Vanilla moved closer, her movements fluid like water. You know, I've never faced a human before. Your kind usually lose in the preliminary rounds. First time for everything. Indeed. She leaned down, her face inches from his. I've studied your matches. You're clever, for a human. But cleverness only goes so far against superior biology. Dallas maintained eye contact, refusing to be intimidated. We'll see. Yes, we will. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Tell you what, human, I'll make you a promise. If you can make me bleed, even a drop, I'll acknowledge your species as worthy competitors. No Veltarian has bled in the arena for over 50 years. Before Dallas could respond, the automated voice announced, Competitors to the entry ports. Match beginning in 5 minutes. Vanilla straightened, her silver eyes gleaming with amusement. See you in the arena, Dallas of Earth. Try to last more than a minute. With that, she turned and glided away toward her designated entry port. Dallas watched her go, his mind already working through the implications of her challenge. Making a Veltarian bleed was no small feat. Their skin was tougher than standard body armor, and their circulatory system was protected by layers of dense tissue. But every species had vulnerabilities, and as an engineer, finding weaknesses in systems was his specialty. The entry port opened before him, revealing a narrow corridor that led to the arena floor. Dallas took a deep breath, activated his exosuit, and stepped forward. The corridor was designed to isolate competitors before matches, preventing any last-minute sabotage or interference. As he walked, holographic projections appeared on the walls around him, statistics, odds, and commentary from various sports analysts across the galaxy. The human competitor enters as a 100-to-1 underdog against champion Vanilla, one commentator was saying. While he's shown surprising resilience in earlier rounds, this match is expected to be quick and decisive. Another voice chimed in. Let's not dismiss the Terran entirely. His victory against the Taurian Brute in the quarterfinals demonstrated remarkable tactical thinking. Tactical thinking won't save him from Vanilla's blades, the first commentator replied. The Veltarian champion has ended her last 12 matches in under 3 minutes. Dallas tuned out the chatter and focused on what lay ahead. He'd spent hours studying recordings of Vanilla's previous matches. She was fast, faster than any human could hope to be, and her natural weapons gave her tremendous reach advantage. But she was also predictable in her patterns, relying on her physical superiority rather than adapting to opponents. The end of the corridor grew brighter as he approached the arena floor. The roar of the crowd, muted until now, suddenly swelled as he emerged into the open space. The arena itself was a technological wonder, a circular field approximately 200 meters in diameter, surrounded by energy barriers that protected spectators while allowing perfect visibility. The floor was composed of interlocking hexagonal panels that could reconfigure during matches, creating dynamic terrain that forced competitors to adapt. Across the arena, Vanilla emerged from her entry port to thunderous applause. As the reigning champion, she had a dedicated following across multiple star systems. She raised her arms, her natural blades extended to their full length of nearly a meter, gleaming under the arena lights. Dallas received a more subdued welcome, though he noticed a section of human spectators cheering wildly for him. Earth might be new to the galactic community, but its people were enthusiastic supporters. A disembodied voice boomed throughout the arena. Welcome to the final match of the individual combat division. Introducing first, the challenger, from Earth, Dallas Green. The human section of the crowd roared, waving Earth flags and banners with his name. And now, our reigning champion, undefeated for 3 consecutive tournaments, from Veltar, Vanilla Dravtor. The rest of the arena erupted in cheers and various forms of alien applause. Vanilla performed a traditional Veltarian salute, her blades cutting intricate patterns in the air with such speed they created visible afterimages. The competitors approached the center of the arena, stopping 5 meters apart. A spherical drone descended between them, the match arbiter, an AI construct programmed with the tournament rules and empowered to enforce them. Competitors, the arbiter announced. You know the rules. Victory is achieved through surrender, incapacitation, or by decision if time expires. Lethal force is prohibited. Targeting life-critical systems will result in immediate disqualification. You may use any natural abilities or approved equipment. The arena terrain will shift randomly throughout the match. Are you prepared? Prepared, Vanilla responded, her silver eyes never leaving Dallas. Prepared, Dallas echoed, activating his helmet, which materialized around his head from the collar of his exosuit. Begin in 3, 2, 1, engage. Vanilla moved the instant the word engage was spoken, covering the distance between them with frightening speed. Dallas had anticipated this. It was her standard opening move, and was already diving to the side as her right blade slashed through the space where he had stood. The crowd gasped at the near miss, then roared as Dallas rolled to his feet and retreated, putting distance between himself and the champion. Fenella didn't pursue immediately, instead, circling slowly, studying him with her silver eyes. "Running already, human," she called out, her voice carrying easily across the arena. "The match has barely begun." Dallas ignored the taunt and used the moment to survey the arena. The hexagonal panels beneath them had already begun to shift, some rising to create elevated platforms, while others sank to form shallow pits. He needed to use the terrain to his advantage. It was his only hope against Fenella's superior speed and strength. The Veltarian lunged again, this time feinting left before striking from the right. Dallas blocked the blow with his reinforced forearm guard, the impact sending vibrations through his entire body despite the exosuit's shock absorption. He countered with a quick jab toward her midsection, but she easily evaded it and slashed at his chest. He backpedaled, the blade missing him by centimeters. "Is this all Earth has to offer?" Fenella taunted, her movements becoming more elaborate, almost playful. She was putting on a show for the crowd, demonstrating her dominance. Dallas retreated toward one of the elevated platforms, maintaining distance while he assessed. Direct confrontation wasn't going to work. He needed to be smarter than that. As he backed away, he noticed something about the way the arena's panels shifted. There was a pattern to it, a rhythm he could potentially predict if he focused. Fenella pursued him relentlessly, her blades a blur of motion as she drove him back. Each time she attacked, he evaded or deflected just enough to avoid serious injury. But he was being worn down. Small cuts appeared on his exosuit where her blades had found purchase, though none had penetrated to the skin beneath. "The human is demonstrating remarkable defensive skills," one of the commentators observed, "but he can't win by simply avoiding damage." Dallas knew this as well as anyone. He needed to turn the tide, and for that, he needed an opening. As he leaped onto an elevated platform, he saw his opportunity. The panel directly in front of him was beginning to sink, while the one behind Fenella was rising. If he timed it right. He feigned a stumble, appearing to lose his balance at the edge of the platform. Fenella, sensing weakness, lunged forward for a decisive strike. At the last possible moment, Dallas dropped flat onto the platform, Fenella's blade passing overhead. In the same motion, he activated the locking mechanism in his exosuit's joints, essentially turning himself into a rigid board, and pushed off from the platform with explosive force. He slid between Fenella's legs and beyond, the momentum carrying him across the sinking panel. As he'd calculated, the panel behind Fenella continued to rise, momentarily disrupting her balance. In that fraction of a second, Dallas sprang to his feet and struck, not with his fists, but with a small device he'd palmed from a compartment in his suit. The device adhered to Fenella's back and immediately activated, releasing a localized electromagnetic pulse that temporarily interfered with the arena's systems. The panel beneath Fenella unexpectedly tilted, causing her to stumble forward. Dallas seized the moment, delivering a precisely targeted strike to a point just below her left shoulder blade, a location he'd identified from his studies as having thinner protective tissue. His fist, enhanced by the exosuit's strength amplification, struck with calculated force. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, as Fenella regained her balance and turned to face him, a small trickle of violet liquid seeped from the impact point. Veltarian blood. The arena fell silent in collective shock. Fenella's silver eyes widened as she reached back and touched the wound, her fingers coming away stained with violet. "You made me bleed," she said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect. The silence broke as the crowd erupted in a cacophony of cheers, boos, and exclamations in dozens of alien languages. The human section of the audience was on their feet, celebrating as if Dallas had already won the entire tournament. "Unprecedented!" a commentator shouted over the noise. The human challenger has drawn blood from champion Vanilla, a feat not accomplished in over 5 decades of arena combat. Dallas didn't have time to savor the moment. The surprise in Vanilla's eyes quickly hardened into determination. She had underestimated him, treated the match as a mere exhibition. That would not happen again. "Well done, human," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "Now we fight for real." What followed was an onslaught unlike anything Dallas had experienced in his previous matches. Vanilla moved with terrifying speed and precision, her blades becoming nearly invisible as they cut through the air. Gone was the showmanship, the theatrical movements designed to entertain the crowd. This was pure, efficient combat from a warrior who had earned her champion status through countless victories. Dallas was forced entirely on the defensive, using every ounce of his engineering knowledge to predict her attacks and find the minimum movement necessary to avoid them. His exosuit sensors were working overtime, the heads-up display flashing warnings as it detected incoming strikes, fractions of a second before they arrived. The arena terrain continued to shift beneath them, panels rising and falling in complex patterns. Dallas used these changes to his advantage when possible, putting obstacles between himself and Vanilla. But she adapted quickly, using the elevated platforms to launch herself at him from unexpected angles. "The champion has abandoned restraint," a commentator observed. "We're witnessing the full extent of Veltarian blade dancing for the first time in this tournament." Dallas knew he couldn't maintain this defensive posture indefinitely. Already his exosuit was reporting strain on multiple joints, and his reactions were slowing as fatigue set in. He needed another opportunity, another moment of vulnerability, but Vanilla was giving him none. As he ducked beneath a horizontal slash, the panel beneath him suddenly dropped, causing him to lose his footing. Vanilla capitalized immediately, her left blade slicing across his chest. The exosuit's outer layer tore open, revealing the secondary protection beneath. Dallas rolled away, but not before her right blade caught his shoulder, cutting through to skin and drawing blood. The crowd roared at the sight of red human blood, contrasting with the arena's white floor. Dallas grimaced, but pushed through the pain. The cut was superficial. His exosuit had absorbed most of the impact, but it served as a stark reminder of the gap between them. Vanilla pressed her advantage, driving Dallas toward the edge of the arena, where the energy barrier hummed with contained power. He was running out of space and options. In desperation, he reached for another device from his suit's compartment, his last resort. As Vanilla closed in for what might be a finishing combination, Dallas activated the device and threw it at her feet. It wasn't a weapon, but a specialized engineering tool that emitted a focused sonic pulse. The pulse itself was harmless to living tissue but played havoc with certain types of crystalline structures, like the ones used in the arena's hexagonal panels. The panel beneath Vanilla momentarily destabilized, its surface becoming temporarily fluid. It wasn't enough to cause serious disruption, but it created a split second of uncertainty, exactly what Dallas needed. He lunged forward, inside Vanilla's guard, and executed a grappling move that human fighters had perfected over centuries. His exosuit's strength enhancement allowed him to momentarily lift the much larger Veltarian and redirect her momentum toward the energy barrier at the arena's edge. Vanilla recovered quickly, twisting in midair to avoid a direct impact with the barrier, but her right arm made contact. The barrier wasn't designed to cause injury, merely to contain the match, but the energy discharge was enough to temporarily numb her arm, causing her blade to retract involuntarily. The crowd was on its feet now, witnessing a match that defied all expectations. The human was not only surviving, but actively challenging the champion. Dallas pressed his advantage, moving in close where Vanilla's remaining blade had less effectiveness. They grappled at the edge of the arena, strength against strength, a contest that should have favored the Veltarian enormously. But Dallas's exosuit and strategic leverage kept him in the fight. "Remarkable technique from the human," a commentator exclaimed. "He's neutralizing the champion's greatest weapons by closing the distance." The match had transformed from an expected rout into an epic struggle that had captured the attention of every being in the arena. Bookmakers across the galaxy were frantically recalculating odds, and viewers, who had tuned in expecting a quick spectacle, were now glued to their screens. It was at this moment, when the match had reached its most intense point, that something went wrong. A section of the arena floor suddenly lurched violently, panels rising and falling with no discernible pattern. The smooth rhythm that Dallas had observed earlier was gone, replaced by chaotic, jerking movements that seemed mechanical rather than programmed. Both competitors were thrown off balance by the unexpected shift. Dallas stumbled backward, while Fanilla was forced to disengage to maintain her footing. Before either could fully recover, a massive panel directly between them began to rise at alarming speed, forming a wall that separated them. The Arbiter drone descended quickly, its lights flashing red, the signal for a technical pause. "Attention competitors! We are experiencing a system malfunction. Please remain in position while technicians—" The announcement was cut short as the rising panel suddenly reversed direction, plummeting toward the floor with frightening velocity. Dallas, still on one side of the panel, was clear of its path. Fanilla, however, was directly beneath it. In that moment, Dallas made a decision that would change the course of the tournament and his life. Rather than remaining in position as instructed, he launched himself forward, diving beneath the falling panel toward Fanilla. His exosuit's enhanced strength allowed him to tackle the Veltarian champion, propelling both of them beyond the panel's crushing path. They tumbled across the arena floor as the massive panel crashed down behind them with enough force to crack the underlying structure. The impact sent shockwaves through the entire arena, causing more panels to malfunction and spectators to grab their seats in alarm. Dallas and Fanilla came to a stop several meters from the impact zone, with Dallas having taken the brunt of the fall to protect the already injured champion. As they disentangled themselves, the floor beneath them suddenly gave way entirely, and they plummeted into the dark maintenance tunnels below the arena. The fall was shorter than it might have been, perhaps 5 meters, but without warning, neither had time to properly brace for impact. They landed hard on a metal grating, Dallas's exosuit absorbing some of the shock, but still leaving both competitors stunned. Emergency lighting activated in the tunnels, bathing everything in a red glow. Above them, through the hole they'd fallen through, they could hear the chaotic sounds of the arena, alarms blaring, the Arbiter drone announcing a full evacuation, and the confused murmur of thousands of spectators. Dallas was the first to recover, pushing himself to a sitting position and checking his exosuit's diagnostics. The fall had damaged several key systems, rendering the strength enhancement non-functional. His heads-up display flickered intermittently, occasionally showing error messages in rapid succession. Beside him, Fanilla groaned and sat up slowly. Her right arm hung limply at her side, the numbing effect of the energy barrier compounded by their fall. A fresh trickle of violet blood ran from a cut on her forehead. "Are you all right?" Dallas asked, his voice hoarse. Fanilla's silver eyes fixed on him, confusion evident. "You pushed me out of the way. Why?" Dallas shrugged, wincing at the pain the movement caused. "Seemed like the right thing to do." "But you could have won, if that panel had—" She didn't finish the thought. "That's not how I want to win," he replied simply. "Besides, I already made you bleed. Mission accomplished." A ghost of a smile appeared on Fanilla's face. "So you did, human. So you did." She attempted to stand, but staggered, nearly falling again before Dallas caught her arm. "Easy," he said. "I think we're both pretty banged up." They looked up at the hole above them, now too high to reach without equipment. The sounds from the arena were becoming more organized, emergency protocols taking effect as the initial panic subsided. "They'll send someone for us soon," Fanilla said. though she sounded less certain than her words suggested. Dallas wasn't so sure. The maintenance tunnels beneath the arena were extensive, a labyrinth of corridors that serviced the complex machinery that powered the competitions. Without functioning communications, they might not be found quickly. "We should try to find our way to an access point," he suggested. "There must be maintenance lifts or stairways that lead back up." Fenella nodded in agreement. "Can you walk?" "Can you?" he countered, eyeing her injured arm. The Veltarian champion straightened her posture, dignity reasserting itself. "I have competed, and won with far worse injuries. Human." Dallas couldn't help but smile at her pride. "Then lead the way, champion." They began moving through the maintenance tunnels, following the emergency lighting that illuminated the path. The tunnels were surprisingly clean and well-maintained, testament to the meticulous standards of the arena's operation, but designed for utility rather than comfort. Pipes and conduits ran along the walls and ceiling, occasionally forcing them to duck or sidestep. As they walked, Dallas's engineering curiosity took over. He examined the infrastructure around them, noting the sophisticated technology that powered the arena above. Despite his injuries, his mind was already analyzing, understanding, forming theories about how everything worked together. "That panel shouldn't have malfunctioned like that," he said, after several minutes of silence. "The arena's systems are supposed to have multiple redundancies." Fenella glanced at him. "Equipment fails. Even the best technology is imperfect." "True, but this was different." Dallas paused at a junction where several conduits converged. "Look at this. These power distribution nodes are designed with triple redundant safety protocols. For a panel to move that fast, with that much force, someone would have had to override those protocols." Fenella's expression darkened. "Are you suggesting sabotage?" "I'm not sure what I'm suggesting yet," Dallas admitted. "But it feels wrong." They continued through the tunnels, eventually finding a maintenance ladder that led to a sealed hatch. Dallas climbed first, despite Fenella's protests that she should take the lead, pointing out that her injured arm made climbing difficult. At the top, he found the hatch secured with a standard electronic lock. "Can you open it?" Fenella called from below. Dallas examined the lock, then reached into one of his exosuit's remaining functional compartments and retrieved a small tool. "Give me a minute." He worked on the lock, bypassing its security with practiced ease, a skill he'd developed not for breaking and entering, but for repairing similar systems that had malfunctioned. After a few moments, the lock disengaged with a satisfying click, and the hatch swung open. They emerged not into the arena as expected, but into a medical facility. The room was empty of personnel, though fully equipped with advanced medical technology designed to treat a variety of species. Emergency lighting here, too, cast everything in a reddish glow. "The medical bay," Fenella observed. "They must have evacuated the staff during the malfunction." Dallas moved to one of the medical terminals and activated it. The screen flickered to life, displaying information in the standard Galactic Alliance script. "Looks like the evacuation is still in progress. Arena security is conducting a full sweep for structural damage." Fenella sat on one of the examination tables, finally allowing herself to show signs of fatigue. "They'll find us here eventually." Dallas nodded, though he was only half listening. His attention had been caught by something on the terminal: medical records, left open in the hasty evacuation. "That's odd." "What is?" Fenella asked, her silver eyes narrowing with interest. "There's been a significant increase in competitor injuries over the past 3 tournaments." He scrolled through the data. Not just minor injuries, but serious ones that required prolonged medical intervention. Many involved arena malfunctions, similar to what we just experienced. Fenella slid off the table and moved to his side, examining the data over his shoulder. "That could be coincidence. The competition has become more intense in recent years." "Maybe," Dallas conceded. "But look at this distribution." He highlighted a section of the data. The injuries are disproportionately affecting new competitors, or those from worlds with less political influence in the alliance. Established champions from core worlds rarely experience these malfunctions. Vanilla was silent for a moment, processing this information. "Except today," she finally said. "Today it happened to me." Their eyes met, understanding passing between them. "Only after I drew blood," Dallas pointed out. "Only after the match became competitive, instead of the expected showcase." A new voice interrupted their realization. "You shouldn't be accessing those records." They turned to find Dr. Zeith standing in the doorway. The Arcturian physician was the head of medical services for the tournament. His translucent skin, showing the complex circulatory system beneath, a trait of his species that made them naturally gifted in medical sciences. "Dr. Zeith?" Vanilla acknowledged with a respectful nod. "We fell through the arena floor during the malfunction." The physician's large, multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly, an Arcturian expression of concern. "Yes, the entire complex is in chaos. Are either of you seriously injured?" "Nothing critical," Dallas answered, subtly switching off the terminal. "But we were just noticing some interesting patterns in injury reports." Dr. Zeith moved into the room, his long, slender fingers already reaching for medical instruments. "The arena is a dangerous place, despite all safety precautions. Now, let me examine you both before security arrives." As the doctor approached Vanilla first, Dallas noticed something unusual, a slight hesitation, a flicker of what might have been guilt in those alien eyes. It was subtle, something most humans would miss, but Dallas had spent years working with non-human species on engineering projects. He had learned to read the micro-expressions that translated across species boundaries. "Doctor," Dallas said casually, "how long have these arena malfunctions been occurring?" The Arcturian's hands paused in their examination of Vanilla's injured arm. "I wouldn't know the specifics. I merely treat the resulting injuries." "But you must have noticed the increase," Dallas pressed. "As head physician, you would have access to all the data." Dr. Zeith resumed his work, his movements now more deliberate. "Statistics fluctuate from tournament to tournament. It's not my place to speculate on causes." Vanilla, catching on to Dallas's suspicion, added her own question. "Have you reported these fluctuations to tournament officials?" "Of course," the doctor replied, perhaps too quickly. "All medical incidents are properly documented." Dallas moved closer, his engineer's mind connecting dots. "And what happens to those reports?" Before Dr. Zeith could answer, the medical bay door slid open again, and 3 security officers entered, 2 Praxians and a Taurian, all wearing the official uniforms of arena security. Their weapons were holstered but visible. "There you are," the lead officer, a Praxian, with distinctive red markings on his exoskeleton, addressed them. "We've been searching the entire complex. The arena has been fully evacuated due to the malfunction." Dallas noticed the officer didn't seem particularly surprised to find them in the medical bay, despite claiming to have been searching. A coincidence, perhaps, or something more. "Officer," Vanilla spoke with the authority of a champion, "we were nearly killed by a falling panel. This goes beyond a simple malfunction." The Praxian's compound eyes remained expressionless. "A full investigation will be conducted. Champion Vanilla. For now, we need to escort you both to secure quarters until the tournament committee determines how to proceed with your match." Dr. Zeith stepped back from Vanilla. "I should complete my examination first. Protocol requires—" "New protocols," the officer interrupted. "Direct orders from Tournament Director Corvin. All competitors are to be secured first. Medical treatment to follow under supervised conditions." Dallas and Vanilla exchanged glances. Something wasn't right. "We'll come with you," Dallas said, his tone deliberately cooperative. "But I'd like to retrieve something from my quarters first. Medication for a pre-existing condition." The officer hesitated, then nodded. We'll escort you there. Then to the secure facility. As they left the medical bay, Dallas noticed Dr. Zeeth watching them with an unreadable expression. The Arcturian made a subtle gesture with his hands, something not meant for the security officers to see. It was a gesture Dallas recognized from his study of alien communication systems. Caution. The security detail led them through empty corridors, the evacuation having cleared the normally bustling complex. Dallas used the opportunity to observe their surroundings, noting security camera positions and access panels, a habit from his engineering work that now served a different purpose. "Where is everyone?" Fanilla asked, as they passed through an atrium that would normally be filled with spectators and competitors. "Safety protocols," the lead officer replied without turning. "Full evacuation until structural integrity is confirmed." They reached Dallas's assigned quarters, a modest room that reflected his status as a newcomer to the tournament. The officer gestured for him to enter, while the others remained outside with Fanilla. "Make it quick," the officer instructed. Inside, Dallas moved to his personal storage unit, ostensibly searching for medication. What he actually retrieved was a small device of his own design, a compact diagnostic tool he used for analyzing structural weaknesses in engineering projects. He slipped it into a hidden compartment in his damaged exosuit before selecting a harmless vitamin supplement to show the officer. "Got it," he said, displaying the supplement container. The officer nodded, seemingly satisfied, and they rejoined the others in the corridor. As they continued toward the secure facility, Dallas discreetly activated his diagnostic tool using the remaining functional controls in his exosuit. The device began scanning and recording data about the complex's systems, power fluctuations, communication frequencies, security protocols. If there was evidence of deliberate sabotage, the tool might find it. They were led to a section of the complex Dallas hadn't visited before, a lower level that appeared to be administrative rather than public-facing. The corridors here were narrower, the lighting more utilitarian. Eventually, they stopped at a door marked Executive Security. "Wait here," the lead officer instructed, entering a code on the door panel. The door slid open to reveal a spacious room with comfortable furnishings, more like a luxury suite than a security holding area. "You'll remain here until the tournament committee makes its decision," the officer explained as they entered. "All communications have been temporarily disabled for security purposes, but your needs will be attended to." "And how long will that be?" Fanilla demanded. "Impossible to say," the Praxian responded, his mandibles clicking slightly, a sign of either nervousness or deception. Dallas couldn't be sure. The structural assessment could take hours. With that, the security detail exited, the door sliding shut behind them with an ominous click that suggested it had been locked from the outside. Fanilla immediately moved to the door, examining it closely. Locked, as expected. Dallas nodded, then held a finger to his lips in the universal gesture for silence. He pointed to various spots around the room, potential surveillance devices. Fanilla understood immediately, her silver eyes narrowing in acknowledgement. "I should rest," she said loudly, moving to one of the comfortable couches. "My arm needs time to recover." Dallas followed her lead. "Good idea. I could use some rest too." They sat close together on the couch, and Dallas discreetly showed Fanilla the diagnostic device hidden in his exosuit. Its small display was showing results from the scan, confirming his suspicions about the complex's systems. Speaking in a whisper close to her ear, he explained, "The arena's control systems were definitely compromised. The panel that nearly crushed you was manually overridden from a secure terminal." Fanilla's expression remained neutral for any watching eyes, but her whispered response conveyed her anger. "Someone tried to kill me, or you, or both of us. And I'm betting it's connected to the pattern of injuries I've found in the medical records," Dallas added. "The question is why? Power, money, the usual motivations," Fanilla whispered back. The tournament carries significant prestige and influences resource allocation within the alliance. Dallas nodded slightly. We need more evidence, and we need to get out of here. Agreed. But how? The door is locked, and even at full strength, I doubt I could break through it without alerting security. Dallas glanced around the room, his engineer's eye evaluating options. We might not need to break the door. He nodded toward an air circulation vent near the ceiling. That's a standard Type 7 environmental system. The ducts would be large enough for us to navigate. Assuming we can access them without being caught, Fanilla pointed out. Dallas smiled faintly. Leave that to me. They spent the next hour in apparent rest, speaking occasionally in normal volumes about inconsequential topics for the benefit of any listening devices. All the while, Dallas was configuring his diagnostic tool for a new purpose. By reprogramming its scanning functions, he created a localized electromagnetic pulse that would temporarily disrupt nearby electronic systems, including surveillance and door locks. When the device was ready, he caught Fanilla's eye and gave a slight nod. She positioned herself near the air vent, ready to move quickly. You know, Dallas said in a conversational tone, I think I need to stretch my legs a bit. This exosuit gets uncomfortable after a fall like that. He stood and walked around the room, casually approaching the door as if examining the craftsmanship. When he was beside the control panel, he activated the modified device. The effect was immediate. The lights flickered, the soft hum of electronics fell silent, and the door's locking mechanism disengaged with an audible click. Simultaneously, Fanilla leaped up and removed the air vent cover with quick, precise movements. Now, Dallas whispered, pulling the door open just enough to check the corridor. It was empty. The security detail had apparently been reassigned after delivering them. This way might be easier than the vents. Fanilla abandoned the vent and joined him at the door. Where to? We need access to the arena's main control systems, Dallas replied as they slipped into the corridor. If someone overrode the safety protocols, there will be records in the system logs. And where would those be? Central operations, most likely. But that would be heavily guarded, especially now. Dallas thought for a moment. There's another option, the maintenance control room. It would have access to the same systems but with less security. Fanilla nodded. Lead the way! They moved through the corridors cautiously, using Dallas's knowledge of standard facility layouts to navigate toward where the maintenance control should be located. The complex was eerily quiet, the evacuation having left entire sections deserted. They encountered a few security patrols but managed to avoid detection by ducking into unused rooms or service alcoves. Dallas's diagnostic tool proved invaluable, allowing them to detect electronic signatures of security systems before they came into view. After nearly 30 minutes of careful progress, they reached a service corridor marked with industrial symbols. This should lead to maintenance control, Dallas whispered. As they followed the corridor, Fanilla suddenly stopped, her head tilting as if listening. Someone's coming, she warned, her sensitive Veltarian hearing detecting what Dallas could not. They quickly ducked into a utility closet, pulling the door nearly closed, but leaving a small gap to observe the corridor. Moments later, two figures appeared, Dr. Zyth and a tall, imposing alien. Dallas recognized as Corvin, the tournament director, a Celestian. Corvin belonged to one of the founding species of the Galactic Alliance, his crystalline body structure refracting light in hypnotic patterns. The two were engaged in an intense conversation, their voices low, but audible in the empty corridor. Cannot continue this way, Dr. Zyth was saying. The human could have been killed. The champion too. Calculated risks, Corvin replied, his voice resonating like crystal chimes. The betting syndicates expected a specific outcome. When the human drew blood, adjustments became necessary. This goes beyond adjustments, the doctor argued. This is manipulation of results through potentially lethal means. If the Ethics Committee were to learn— The Ethics Committee serves at my pleasure, Corvin interrupted coldly. As do you, Doctor. Remember that your research funding depends on tournament revenue. Dr. Zythe's translucent skin flushed with color, a sign of Arcturian distress. There are principles that should transcend. Principles don't fund medical breakthroughs. Corvin cut him off again. The tournament proceeds as planned. The official record will show a technical malfunction that unfortunately ended a promising match. Both competitors will receive honorable mentions and will advance the pre-selected finalist. And if they talk? If they share their suspicions? Corvin's crystalline form shifted slightly, the equivalent of a dismissive shrug. Who would believe them? A newcomer human and a champion whose pride was wounded by that human. Their claims would seem like poor sportsmanship at best. The two continued down the corridor, their voices fading as they turned a corner. Inside the closet, Dallas and Vanilla exchanged meaningful glances. Betting syndicates, Dallas whispered. They're fixing matches. Vanilla's silver eyes had darkened with anger. My victories, were they real? Or were they calculated too? We need proof, Dallas insisted. Suspicions and overheard conversations won't be enough. They waited until they were certain the corridor was clear before continuing to the maintenance control room. The door was secured with a standard maintenance lock, far simpler than the security measures protecting more sensitive areas. Dallas made quick work of it using his engineering tools. Inside, the control room was a technical paradise. Banks of terminals monitoring every aspect of the arena's functions, from environmental controls to the complex mechanisms that moved the hexagonal panels. Dallas immediately went to work, his fingers flying across the interface as he accessed system logs. Here, he said after several minutes of intense searching. Log entries showing manual overrides of safety protocols during at least 20 matches over the past 3 tournaments. In each case, the override came from a secure terminal in the director's private suite. Vanilla leaned over his shoulder, her silver eyes scanning the data. Can you download this evidence? Dallas nodded, connecting his diagnostic tool to the terminal. Already on it. But this is only part of what we need. We still don't have proof of the connection to betting syndicates. What about the weapons vault? Vanilla suggested. Dallas looked up in surprise. Weapons vault. Where they store competitors' equipment between matches, she explained. All weapons and technology are scanned and analyzed before being approved for competition. Those scans would include detailed performance metrics, data that would be valuable for predicting match outcomes, and potentially manipulating them, Dallas realized. If they had detailed knowledge of every competitor's capabilities, they could program the arena to exploit specific weaknesses. Vanilla finished. The vault should be in the security wing, near the competitor preparation areas. With the evidence from the maintenance log secured in his diagnostic tool, Dallas logged out of the terminal, careful to leave no trace of their access. Let's go. They made their way through the complex, moving with greater urgency now. The evacuation protocols were still in effect, but Dallas's diagnostic tool detected increased security activity, systematic sweeps that suggested someone had discovered their absence from the holding room. The weapons vault was located exactly where Vanilla had predicted, its entrance protected by a substantial security door. Unlike the maintenance control room, this would not be easily breached. Now what? Vanilla asked, eyeing the formidable barrier. Dallas studied the security system, noting its components and design. This is a dual authentication system, requires both biometric verification and a security code, neither of which we have. Actually, Dallas pointed to a small maintenance panel beside the main security interface. This is for emergency override in case of system failure. Standard design requires it to connect directly to the primary circuit. He removed the panel cover and examined the circuitry within. After a moment of consideration, He reconfigured his diagnostic tool once more and connected it to specific junction points. "This might trigger alarms," he warned Fenella. "Be ready to move quickly." She nodded, her body tensing in preparation. Dallas activated the tool, sending a precisely calibrated pulse through the security system. The door remained closed for several agonizing seconds. Then, with a soft hiss, it slid open. No alarms sounded, but Dallas knew they might have triggered silent alerts. "We need to be fast," he said as they entered the weapons vault. The room was impressive, a large, circular chamber, with weapons and equipment from dozens of species displayed in specialized containment fields. Each item was accompanied by a terminal, showing detailed specifications and approval status. "Where do we start?" Fenella asked, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information. Dallas approached a central control terminal. "We need to access the master database, the complete analysis records for all equipment." He worked quickly, bypassing security measures with practiced skill. Years of legitimate system maintenance had taught him how these protections functioned, and consequently, how to circumvent them when necessary. "Here," he said finally, displaying a complex data structure on the main screen. "This is the complete analysis database, including performance metrics for every piece of approved equipment." Fenella examined the data, her expression darkening. "Look at this. My blades. They've mapped every possible movement pattern, calculated strike force at every angle, identified structural weak points. And they've done the same for every competitor," Dallas added, scrolling through more records. "With this level of detail, they could program the arena to counter specific techniques or exploit weaknesses in equipment. But how does this connect to betting syndicates?" Dallas continued searching, digging deeper into the system. After several tense minutes, he found what they were looking for: a hidden communication protocol embedded in the security system. "This is it," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "They're transmitting this analysis data to external servers registered to shell corporations that trace back to major betting operations in the Outer Rim territories." Fenella's silver eyes widened. "The entire tournament is compromised." "Not just the tournament," Dallas realized as he followed the data trail further. "These betting syndicates have connections to high-level officials in the Alliance government. This corruption extends beyond sports. It's influencing policy decisions, resource allocation, maybe even military strategy. We need to get this information to someone who can act on it," Fenella said urgently. "Someone beyond Corvin's influence." Dallas nodded, downloading the evidence to his diagnostic tool. "The Galactic Ethics Committee has an independent enforcement division. If we can reach their representatives—" A sudden noise from outside the vault interrupted him, the unmistakable sound of security forces approaching. "Time's up," Fenella said, her natural blades extending despite her injured arm. "Can you complete the download?" "Almost there," Dallas replied, his fingers working frantically as a progress indicator inched toward completion. "Just a few more seconds." The indicator reached 100% just as the first security officers appeared at the vault entrance. Dallas disconnected his tool and turned to face the newcomers alongside Fenella. There were 6 officers, 2 Praxians, 3 Taurians, and a human Dallas didn't recognize. All were armed with standard security stun weapons. "Stand down and surrender," the lead officer ordered. "By order of Tournament Director Corvin, you are detained for questioning regarding arena sabotage." Dallas almost laughed at the irony. "Sabotage? Is that the official story now?" "Final warning," the officer stated flatly. "Surrender, or we will use force." Fenella stepped forward, her champion's presence commanding attention even in her injured state. "You know what's happening here," she addressed the officers directly. "You know the tournaments are being manipulated. How many of you have witnessed accidents that seem too convenient?" The officers exchanged glances, uncertainty momentarily replacing professional detachment. "We have proof," Dallas added, holding up his diagnostic tool. Evidence of systematic corruption that reaches the highest levels of tournament administration. Do you really want to be on the wrong side of this when it becomes public? The human officer, a woman with dark skin and close-cropped hair, spoke for the first time. What kind of proof? System logs showing safety overrides during matches, data transmission to betting syndicates, direct involvement of Director Corvin, Dallas explained. Enough to trigger a full Alliance investigation. Another tense moment passed as the security team processed this information. Then, to Dallas's surprise, the human officer lowered her weapon. "I've seen enough suspicious accidents to last a lifetime," she said grimly, "including one that ended my brother's competition career last year." The other officers hesitated, looking to their human colleague, and then to each other. Slowly, reluctantly, they lowered their weapons as well. "What do you need?" the human officer asked. "A secure transmission to the Ethics Committee," Vanilla answered, "and a way out of the complex." The officer nodded. "I can get you to a communication terminal in the security office. As for getting out," she glanced at her colleagues, "that might be more complicated." "One problem at a time," Dallas said. "Let's start with the transmission." The security team escorted them to their office, not as prisoners, but as allies in an impromptu conspiracy against corruption. The human officer, who introduced herself as Lieutenant Santos, secured the room while Dallas prepared the evidence for transmission. "The Ethics Committee maintains an emergency channel for corruption reports," Lieutenant Santos explained, accessing a secure terminal. Once received, the evidence is automatically duplicated across multiple secure servers to prevent tampering. Dallas connected his diagnostic tool to the terminal and organized the evidence, system logs, data analysis, recorded conversations, all carefully structured to tell a clear and compelling story of systematic corruption. "Ready?" he asked, looking to Vanilla and the officers. Vanilla nodded, her silver eyes resolute. "Do it." Dallas initiated the transmission. The terminal displayed a progress bar as the substantial data package was encrypted and sent through secured Alliance channels. After what seemed like an eternity, a confirmation message appeared. "Transmission received. Verification protocol initiated." A collective sigh of relief filled the room, but it was premature. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the complex, and the terminal displayed a security alert. "Unauthorized transmission detected. Lockdown protocols engaged." "Corvin," Vanilla growled. "He must have monitoring systems we didn't account for." Lieutenant Santos moved quickly to a security display. "The entire complex is being sealed. All exits will be locked down within minutes." "Then we need to move now," Dallas urged. "Is there a maintenance exit? Something that might be overlooked in standard lockdown procedures?" The Praxian officer clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The waste reclamation tunnels. They're not part of the main security grid. They use a separate system for environmental hazard containment." "Can you get us there?" Vanilla asked. The officer nodded. "Follow me." They moved swiftly through the complex, alarms continuing to sound as security forces mobilized. Lieutenant Santos and another officer led the way, using their security clearances to bypass locked sections, while the others provided rear guard. They encountered resistance twice, security teams loyal to Corvin, who attempted to stop them. In both instances, the presence of uniformed officers in their group created enough confusion to allow them to push through with minimal confrontation. The waste reclamation access point was located in a lower level of the complex, a utilitarian area far removed from the glamorous public spaces above. A heavy door, marked with hazard symbols, protected the entrance to the tunnels. "This leads to the main waste processing facility," the Praxian officer explained as he entered his access code. "From there, you can reach the exterior through the environmental filtration system." The door opened to reveal a long, dimly lit tunnel with a narrow walkway alongside a channel of flowing liquid waste. The smell was unpleasant, but not overwhelming, testament to advanced waste management technology. The facility is 2 kilometers ahead, Lieutenant Santos said, handing Dallas a small device. This is a security bypass. It should get you through any internal barriers you encounter. You're not coming with us? Vanilla asked. The human officer shook her head. We can do more good here. Once the ethics committee responds, they'll need allies on the inside. Dallas understood the logic, but worried for their safety. Corvin will know you helped us. Let him suspect, Lieutenant Santos replied with grim determination. We've been silent too long already. With heartfelt thanks and promises of future contact, Dallas and Fanilla entered the tunnel. The door closed behind them, sealing them in the dim, humid environment of the waste management system. They moved as quickly as conditions allowed, following the walkway alongside the flowing waste channel. The tunnel occasionally branched or changed elevation, but they maintained their course toward the processing facility, guided by directional markers on the walls. If we get through this, Fanilla said as they navigated a particularly narrow section, what happens next? Dallas considered the question. The ethics committee will investigate. With the evidence we provided, they can't ignore it. But investigations take time, and Corvin has powerful allies. So the corruption continues? Not if we don't let it, Dallas replied with determination. Once we're out, we go public. Every news outlet in the Alliance, every social media channel. We make so much noise they can't possibly bury it. Fanilla's silver eyes gleamed in the dim light. The champion and the human engineer who made her bleed, exposing the greatest scandal in tournament history. It would be quite a story. Exactly, Dallas agreed. Too big to ignore, too public to suppress. They continued in companionable silence for some time, each lost in their own thoughts. Despite their different origins and the adversarial beginning to their relationship, they had formed an unlikely but effective partnership. Dallas found himself admiring not just Fanilla's physical capabilities, but her intelligence and principled stance once she understood the truth. After nearly an hour of walking, they reached the waste processing facility, a vast chamber filled with enormous machinery that filtered, separated, and reclaimed materials from the complex's waste stream. The facility was largely automated, with only a few maintenance drones moving among the equipment. The environmental filtration system should be on the far side, Dallas said, consulting a schematic display near the entrance. They made their way across the facility, navigating around processing tanks and purification systems. The air here was thick with moisture and the chemical smell of cleaning agents, but significantly fresher than in the tunnels they had left behind. At the far wall, they found what they were looking for, a large ventilation shaft that connected to the external air filtration system. A heavy grate covered the opening, secured with both mechanical locks and an electronic security system. Dallas examined the security panel, then applied the bypass device Lieutenant Santos had given them. The panel lights shifted from red to green, and the mechanical locks disengaged with a solid clunk. Together, they removed the grate and peered into the shaft. It's a straight shot to the exterior, Dallas observed. Maybe 50 meters of crawling. Fanilla nodded, her expression determined despite her injury. After you, human. Dallas entered the shaft first, crawling on hands and knees through the confined space. Fanilla followed close behind, her larger frame making the journey more difficult, but not impossible. The shaft was dusty, but otherwise clean, designed to allow maintenance access to the filtration systems. After what seemed like an eternity of crawling, Dallas felt a change in the air, a freshness that suggested they were nearing the exterior. Soon, he could see light ahead, filtering through another grate at the end of the shaft. This final barrier proved easier to overcome. The external grate was secured only with simple mechanical fasteners, easily removed from the inside. Dallas pushed it open and emerged into the open air of Centauri Prime, with Fanilla following moments later. They found themselves on a maintenance platform on the exterior of the arena complex, approximately 30 meters above the ground. The platform overlooked the emerald plains that surrounded the facility, stretching to the horizon under the dual suns of the Centauri system. "We made it," Dallas said, breathing deeply of the fresh air. Fenella stood beside him, her silver eyes scanning the landscape. "For now, but we're still on Arena property. We need to get farther away before Corvin's security forces expand their search." Dallas nodded in agreement. "There should be a maintenance elevator that leads to ground level." They located the elevator at the end of the platform and called it using the security bypass. As they waited, Fenella turned to Dallas with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You made me bleed," she said, her voice carrying a complex mixture of emotions. Dallas met her gaze steadily. "I did. No one has done that in 50 years of competition." A pause. Then, "It was enlightening." "How so?" Fenella's mouth curved in that alien approximation of a smile. "It reminded me that there is always more to learn, more to experience, that no species, no individual, should be dismissed based on assumptions." The elevator arrived with a soft chime, and they entered. As the doors closed and the car began its descent, Fenella continued. "When this is over, when the corruption has been exposed and the tournament reformed, I would like to visit Earth." Dallas looked at her in surprise. "Earth? Why?" "To understand," she replied simply. "To see the world that produces humans like you, engineers who can make champions bleed through intelligence rather than brute force." Dallas smiled. "I'd be honored to show you my world, and perhaps someday you might show me Veltar in return." "It would be my privilege," Fenella agreed, her silver eyes warm with newfound respect. The elevator reached ground level and opened to reveal the sprawling maintenance yard that serviced the arena complex. In the distance, they could see the spaceport where vessels from across the galaxy arrived and departed daily. "First step," Dallas said as they exited the elevator. "Find transport to the spaceport." "Second step," Fenella added. "Contact every news organization in the Alliance." "Third step," Dallas continued with a grin. "Watch Corvin's empire crumble." Side by side, the human engineer and the alien champion set out across the maintenance yard, their unlikely partnership forged in adversity and strengthened by shared purpose. Behind them, the Chthon arena rose like a glittering monument to competition and spectacle. Before them lay an uncertain path, but one they would walk together, champions of a different kind of battle. In the days that followed, the galaxy would learn the truth about the tournament's corruption. The Ethics Committee, armed with irrefutable evidence, would launch a comprehensive investigation that eventually led to Corvin's removal and prosecution, along with dozens of co-conspirators throughout the Alliance. The tournament would be reformed under new leadership, with transparent policies and independent oversight. Dr. Zeith, vindicated by his attempts to raise concerns, would be appointed to head a new committee on competitor safety. And as for Dallas and Fenella, they would become symbols of an unexpected truth, that sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating adversaries, but from transforming them into allies. The human who made an alien champion bleed, and the champion who learned humility, would travel between their worlds, building bridges of understanding that transcended competition. Their story would be told in arena halls and engineering academies alike, a reminder that integrity, intelligence, and the courage to stand against corruption were qualities that belonged to no single species, but to all who chose to embrace them.